Hey Smug Peeps, K-Man of Smugface Entertainment here, and today is episode 5 of Smugface Commentaries. I'll be going back to the 1980s when Spider-Man was on the scene, but he wasn't alone. He teamed up with Iceman of the X-Men and Firestar in the show called Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. This particular episode is Along Came Spidey, where Spider-Man takes on the Shocker, as well as traces his origins back to when he first became Spider-Man. This particular episode was the very first of this entire series that I watched. It's one that has stuck with me since I was a child, and I thought I'd bring it on for today's commentary. So, without any further ado, let's just jump straight into the show. Alright, there we go. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Along Came Spidey. 1982 is when this first came out. Who is Spider-Man by Stan Lee in the Daily Bugle. Hilarious little inside joke there. We open to the New York State prison, and the villain of today's show, which is the Shocker, as we're about to see, puts on his Shocker bracelets, just reactivates, and just like that, punches his way out of prison. And the alarms sound off. The police guard sees that he's on the escape, but it's of no good because in comes a helicopter ready to pick up the Shocker. And just like that, the helicopter takes off and he dresses into his costume and he vows revenge on Spider-Man for putting him in the prison. We then cut to inside New York City, just outside the jewelry store, and there are these Spider friends along with Aunt May and Ms. Lion, the little dog. And almost immediately Spider-Man senses that there's trouble coming. So as a great excuse to get away, he lies about a spider sale. Funny thing was, they always use a lot of ice and fire references. Firestar's going to a fire sale, and Iceman's going to a cold store, I think. It was all an excuse just to go and get changed. Anyway, here comes the Shocker attacking with his new shock power. We just cue to Iceman and Firestar changing. Very cool. And they have their little catchphrase, Spider Friends go for it. So you can see where Power Rangers stole their idea from. Right, Shocker's getting ready to take all that jewelry, and in comes Spider-Man. And Shocker's ready for revenge. This was such a 1980s show because you can hear the typical dialogue, Spider-Man, we meet again. The Shocker was the really first animated villain I became sort of familiar with. But yeah, I did watch the 60s show when I was a little kid back then. I was a bit older when this show came out. So yeah, it did come out in the 1980s. But I didn't watch it until about 86, I think. So that was how things were back then. The show would get released in the US, and then we wouldn't get it here in the UK until much years later. But yeah, so we cue to the Shocker. He just temporarily stunned Spider-Man. Shocker's getting ready to finish him off until the Shocker's getaway vehicle comes along. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention that the Shockers blasted the streets, so there's water pipes bursting everywhere, so Firestar and Iceman need to go and fix that, so that's keeping them occupied while Spider-Man goes after the Shocker. Like I said, very 1980s when Spider-Man used his webs and it wouldn't work on the villain. It says, "Oh, your powers are no match for me, Spider-Man." Anyway, oh dear, Spider-Man gets thrown right down into the jewelry store, and unfortunately the rocks land and they hit Aunt May, knocking her unconscious. Maybe move over to Firestar Iceman cleaning up the busted pipe. Really cool. Using their fire and ice to completely fix busted pipes. So they'd be very handy, if they wanted to become plumbers, I think. And maybe see Ms. Lion, the little dog, crying, and then they can see what's happened without May being knocked out. And Spider-Man just looking really sad and helpless. That's funny, in the comic books, I think eventually he tells her about his powers and that he's Spider-Man. But it never happened in any of the real animated shows. They always kept that bit quiet, so I do wonder if they had run on for a long time, if Spider-Man would have eventually revealed it. And maybe cue to the hospital where Spider-Man is holding her hand, or Peter Parker rather, is holding her hand as the other two watch on. And he's now contemplating giving up Spider-Man. So we cue to a scene on the rooftop of the hospital where Pete is with Bobby and Angelica Jones, aka Iceman Firestar. And he's just telling them about the story about how he became Spider-Man. So this was the good origin story. But funny thing is, this episode was like second in the series, so it made no sense why it wasn't the first one. Anyway, we cue to Peter as a young boy. Well, he's telling the story about how I was a young boy and how it was always him and his Uncle Ben. And then we cue to the secondary school when he's older, and he's getting bullied by the Flash Thompson, and of course the girls are laughing at him. Such a nerd, unfortunately. Well, this is a bit you can almost relate to, especially me, because I got bullied when I was a kid. I wasn't always the most popular with the girls either. So yeah, that's one of the reasons what makes Spider-Man so relatable. The fact that he never, before he got his powers, he was a regular kid. Unfortunately, he's seen as the nerd and wasn't liked by the ladies at all and got bullied by the school jocks. So yeah, very, very relatable. Maybe another flashback where he's a bit older, about to go to college, and it's still the same. He's being made fun of and picked on by Flash Thompson and the jocks, and the girls want absolutely nothing to do with him, just making fun of him. Dear, oh dear. The only people he had with him in all that time as a kid, as a young teenager, was his Uncle Ben and his Aunt May. So he had good grades and he managed to get into ESU. And then we cue to the part of the episode which shows the change in his life. So if you're a fan of Spider-Man, you know how this story goes. He's in an experiment, it's part of an exhibition with lasers, and the spider gets caught in the laser experiment and somehow ends up falling on Pete's hand, biting him. And that's where we begin the story of Spider-Man. He had to walk outside of his outside of the presentation, and as he's walking, that's when the powers begin to kick in. So it's like a sixth sense. It's one of in danger, his spider sense. And the car's coming straight for him, jumps straight onto the building, and he sticks. I remember the Tobey Maguire movies when he first learns to climb, and it's almost, oh, this is a shock. So here they've just kind of, well, not skimmed over it, they've made it quicker. And he's walking up the side of the wall. Of course, the little kid sees him, but the mother says, nah, don't believe you. But yeah, this is the beginning of him becoming Spider-Man. So not only can he climb up walls, he can also crush things. So the radioactive spider gave him the human equivalent powers of a huge spider, so that's where he became Spider-Man. So this bit is just him discovering his powers, and it's just basically walking. There's that little spider that keeps being shown for some reason. Don't know what that's about. So he's already discovered his powers in just one fell swoop. He's acrobatic. He's super strong. He is lifting up a car. You can't believe it. So yeah, just like that, one fell swoop, his life has changed forever. So he has new powers, but as the story goes, we all know he wasn't looking to become, responsible with his powers. He just looked at it as a way of, oh, I can use this to make money and maybe become successful with the ladies. So he's looking for a way to make some big money. So again, if you remember the Spider-Man Tobey Maguire movie, the scene when he wears a mask and he goes up to a wrestler. Very different to the one we saw in the movie. In the movie, it was Macho Man Randy Savage. Here, because it was 1980s, I'd say more of a King Kong Bundy type wrestler. So anyway, here he goes, one-on-one with the wrestler. He's just walking all around him, and they lock up, and then look at that, picks him up, carries him, takes him all the way to the top of the ring, which that's a high-ass ring, by the way. The wrestler suddenly realizes that he's the loser here, so Pete wins and knocks him down. That's where his journey continues, and of course a promoter sees him, he makes his money, and of course with all the success he's getting, it's all going to his head, so he's gotten paid for his wrestling match. And then he gets approached by, again, the TV producer that I just said approached him for a stunt in a try in Hollywood, sorry. So yeah, it's all sort of getting to his head here. Yeah, part of Spider-Man's trajectory was his web shooters. So, as we all know in the movie, with Tobey Maguire, it came naturally from his wrists, but in the animated shows, it was constructed. So this is the bit where he's constructing his web shooters and makes his formula to shoot out his webs. Sews up his own costume, and there he is. He is Spider-Man. So of course it's gotten to his head now. Yeah, now that I'm Spider-Man, I've got these newfound powers. I'm going to show the world who I am. So here he comes. Here comes your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So, anyway, we cue back to Spider-Friends on the roof, and Peter's still explaining the full origins of his story. So there he was, a plain old simple superstar, as he says. So he comes into an exhibition show and starts displaying all his cool little moves. Because as a Hollywood celebrity, always late on the scene. There he is. So for him, it was all about the fame and the money, of course. So like I said, it's like an exhibition here, so he's just showing off his acrobatics, his web shooter skills, his strength. Like I said, just an exhibition. He picked up a dumbbell and held it with just one finger. So just like that, everyone wants a piece of this guy. And then here comes the bit which was the defining moment of him becoming Spider-Man. There's a crook running away with some money. Spidey just lets him walk past. And the guard is giving him a hard time. Why didn't you stop the crook? And Spidey's like, that's not my job. I'm done being pushed around. From now on, all I look out for is number one, myself. So like I said, he's just completely gone at this point. It's all about him and his fame and his money. So he's enjoying all the fame, he's enjoying all the money. And then on one fateful night, he's walking home and there's a police car in front of his house. So he approaches the police officer, and the police officer tells him the tragic news that his uncle Ben has unfortunately been dealt with. So you have to be careful not to use certain words here, because on YouTube you just never know. But the crook got a hold of his father, and unfortunately, his uncle, Uncle Ben, and Uncle Ben is no longer around. So Pete's in absolute despair. So running into the house, it's crying. There's no Aunt May here at this point. Aunt May, I think, is at the hospital or next door, I think. So Pete's just angry now. All he can think about is vengeance and getting the crook that took his uncle. So it's just blind rage. So Spider-Man is off for revenge. So the crook that they're looking for is cornered at a warehouse, and the police have him cornered. But Spider-Man has his own way in, so just breaks a hole into the warehouse and goes in. By the way, I have to say the animation for this particular episode, I don't think it held up for the rest of the series, but in this particular episode the animation is quite good. Spidey finds the crook and vows vengeance that you're not escaping from me, not ever, and goes after him. This is a very good callback episode, by the way. Like I said, this is the origin of how Pete became Spider-Man. They should have had this for the first episode. This is actually number 2 in the Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends run. Yeah. When the crook is cornered, Spidey gets him with his webs. Up close and personal, he discovers that it's the same crook that he let run past him back at the exhibition. The very own face that he let escape, and unfortunately went on to dispatch his uncle. We cue back outside, and Spider-Man has handed the cops their target. And the Spider-Man, he didn't kill him, but he let him live. And Spidey's walking by himself, crying, upset, blaming himself that if only he'd stopped him earlier, Uncle Ben would still be alive. And then he learned that great saying, with great power comes great responsibility. And because of what's happened with Aunt May in the hospital, he said by not helping Aunt May and losing Uncle Ben previously, he's ready to give up being Spider-Man. And of course, they're both going to talk him out of it, Angelica and Bobby. With great powers comes great responsibility, so it's like he's being tested all over again, and then they finally manage to talk him out of it, and they go for it again. So they're back to the hospital where Aunt May has recovered. But the celebrations are short-lived, because the Shocker is back just outside of Metro Hospital. And the Shocker is back for vengeance. He wants Spider-Man gone, and Shocker's just on a rampage now, just blowing things up. Shocker was one of my more remembered villains, largely because of this episode. And I think that this version of the Shocker is a bit more menacing than the one we saw in the Spider-Man 94 animated show, I think. But of course, this is the 80s, so they have that corny dialogue. I have my shock powers and I will destroy all of New York City if I don't get Spider-Man. So it's just funny. Anyway, here he is just going rampage. Anyway, the Spider-Friends head to the alleyway and they change. But one thing I couldn't stand back then and still now is when they're changing, why did they have to announce, oh, Firestar, Iceman, and then they're going to action? Like, just change. You don't need to call it. This isn't like He-Man. Right. One by one, they go after the Shocker, so Firestar's first. Unfortunately, she gets dispatched sort of fairly easily. They could have made her look a little bit more stronger than this, but it was the 80s. That's a whole other story, I think. So unfortunately, Firestar gets taken out, like I said, very quickly. Her kryptonite will seem to be water or cold. Anything that was water or cold would just take her out. And Iceman was the opposite. Anything hot or fire would take him out. So Iceman's next taking on the Shocker. Catches him in the cocoon, but of course that never works. Like I said, the Firestar and Iceman were made to look kind of like sidekicks, and they weren't that strong. And we all know Iceman's, in the comics as it was discovered, he's like an Omega level mutant, so it's way more powerful than what he was shown to be in this series. Anyway, here comes the main event. Spider-Man one-on-one with the Shocker, and almost immediately gets taken out. And Shocker turns up his belt, and that's where Spider-Man discovers that's the Shocker's main source of power. Right. Anyway, Spider-Man's just seen it now, so yep, here we go. This is going to be where they take out the Shocker. So he gathers Iceman and Firestar and tells him, I know how to beat the Shocker, and it comes from the belt on his suit. So his power comes from his costume. So we have one final showdown with the Shocker. Ready for more? He says, let's go. But this time, the heroes take him out. Taking out his fire bracelets. Firestar dispatches of the first one. Iceman dispatches of the second. Now Shocker realizes he's in trouble, so he needs to turn up his power, but Spidey puts a stop to that. With the spiderweb, takes the belt, and now the Shocker is completely powerless and realizes, I better get out of here. So he has to run. What was it? One time the bad guy gets away? Nope, not quite. So he's hanging onto the ladder on the helicopter. Firestar knocks it over. He's truly almost done. And Spidey just creates a nice web trap for him. He falls into it and boom, caught. And the final straw is the helicopter trying to get away, and Iceman just puts a stop to the helicopter, bringing it down. I would say just to give the helicopter a safe landing, just creates an ice bath, and boom. Helicopter's done, the Shocker gets taken to prison. And the Spider-Friend once again saved the day, and Spider-Man realizes, yeah, with great power comes great responsibility. Anyway, we cue back to their apartment where they stay, and Aunt May is back and up and running again. But here in this particular series, the running gag was that she never knew who Spider-Man was, and she didn't like him and called him an awful Spider-Man. But yeah, well, I just missed that bit. But yeah, she just says that she thanks Spider-Man for saving her. And we get ready to finish the episode. And there you have it, the end of the episode. So yeah, that was Spider-Man and his amazing friends. Along came Spidey. Yeah. Just checking out the end credits, and I love the theme song to this. It was absolutely great. There's a bit where Stan Lee would narrate at the start of the throughout the entire episode, and in the copy I have, I think they took that bit out, unfortunately. Anyway, that's the end of the commentary. Yeah, it was just me waffling on about what I'm seeing on screen, and also talking about my first encounter with the episode. But yeah, I'm going to bring this commentary to an end. So if you've been watching and you've made it this far, I thank you very much. If you like what you saw, give it a like, give it a comment, and don't forget to share and subscribe and all that great stuff. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Cameron the Smugface Entertainment, and I'll see you on the next video.